Thank you, Mr. President. You've made clear your position on what impact the strikes had. I wanted to ask you what is next with Iran. For instance, is there any indication from U.S. intelligence that Iran was able to move any material, including
just
uranium?
The opposite. We think we hit them so hard and so fast they didn't get to move. And if you knew about that material, it's very hard and very dangerous to move. It's called in many people, they call it dust, but it's very, very heavy. It's very, very hard to move. And they were way down. You know, they're 30 stories down. They're literally 30, 35 stories down underground.
I think you got it all.
Oh, yeah, we think we think it's covered with granite, concrete, and steel.
And so it's begun. Donald Trump is now engaged in a disinformation campaign to save face by pretending that, despite all of the intelligence information and news reports to the contrary, that in fact the military strikes against Iran's nuclear facilities did obliterate them. Now, of course, that comes in stark contrast to reporting that Iran had, quote, moved equipment and uranium from the site in recent days. There was growing evidence that the Iranians, attuned to Mr. Trump's repeated threats to take military action, had removed 400 kilograms, or roughly 880 pounds, of uranium enriched to 60% purity. That is just below the 90% that is usually used in nuclear weapons. The 60% enriched fuel had been stored deep inside another nuclear complex near the ancient capital of Isfahan. Rafael Mariano Grossi, the Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, said by text that the fuel had been last seen by his team of United Nations inspectors about a week before Israel began its attacks on Iran. In an interview on CNN on Sunday, he added that Iran has made no secret that they have protected this material. Asked by text later in the day whether he meant that the fuel stockpile, which is stored in special casks small enough to fit in the trunks of about 10 cars, had been moved, he replied, "I do." And if you're wondering why Trump had such a vested interest in rewriting the narrative here, it's because the reason that Iran was reportedly aware of the impending attack is because Donald J. Trump himself could not control himself when he should have been exercising some discretion. According to the New York Times, quote, Mr. Trump seemed almost gleeful in telling reporters that he could make a decision 1 second before it's due because things change, especially with war. All the while, Mr. Trump was making blustery statements indicating he was about to take the country into the conflict. Everyone should evacuate Tehran, he wrote on Monday last week on Truth Social, the social media platform he owns. The following day, he posted that he had not left a meeting of the Group of Seven in Canada to broker a Middle East ceasefire, but for something, quote, much bigger. So, he told the world, stay tuned. These public pronouncements generated angst at the Pentagon and U.S. Central Command, where military planners began to worry that Mr. Trump was giving Iran too much warning about an impending strike. A small group of top military officials at the Pentagon and U.S. Central Command in Tampa had already begun refining attack plans on the Fordo facility and other Iranian nuclear sites that military planners had drawn up years ago. But even as the military planning was being conducted in secrecy, each of Mr. Trump's social media posts seemed to be telling the world what was coming. The president, said one military official, was the biggest threat to OPSEC, or operational security, that the planning faced. In other words, if there is one thing that actually ensured that this plan wouldn't work, it was Donald Trump himself. He is the reason that the Iranians had plenty of time to prepare for the attack, because he is incapable of knowing when or how to shut the fuck up. So now, given the fact that reporting suggests that Iran was able to avoid obliteration, for Trump, it is a saving face mission. He doesn't want to be blamed for the screw-up that he himself caused, so his sole goal now is to offer up the talking point that Iran's facilities were 100% obliterated. And if you push back on that, then not only are you a liar, but you hate our military. Which is why he tweeted, "We just caught the failing New York Times, working with fake news CNN, cheating again. They tried to demean the great work our B-2 pilots did, and they were wrong in doing so. These reporters are just bad and sick people. You would think they would be proud of the great success we had, instead of trying to always make our country look bad. Total obliteration." In other words, if you dare report the truth, then you're a traitor to this country. Instead, you have to toe the Trump line and wave American flags in the air, even if what he's saying bears no resemblance to reality, because something patriotism. In fact, Trump got increasingly agitated at the fact that reporters were holding him to account based on reality and poking a hole in his precious narrative.
So, Mr. President, you talked about expecting some on-the-ground assessments at Fordo and other sites. Is that Israeli and U.S.?
It's been obliterated, Kelly.
What is your message then, sir, to the intelligence community when they present reports? You're not disputing the DIA report. You're just...
They presented a report that wasn't finished. We're talking about something that took place 3 days ago.
I understand that, sir.
The report was done
so
2 days ago. Wait a minute.
Yes.
They didn't see it. All they can do is take a guess. Now, if you take a look at the pictures, if you take a look how it's all blackened, you know the fire and brimstone is all underground because it's granite and it's all underground. You don't show it. But even there, with all of that being said, the whole area for 75 yards around the hole where it hit is black with fire. The group that's run by this gentleman, in fact, you may want to talk about it for a second because we're going to issue a report. And I think it's not even a very exciting report at this point. It's been obliterated, totally obliterated. And they did a report, but it was like, if you look at the dates, it's just a few days after it
Understood,
happened.
sir.
So they didn't see it. They said it may be very severe.
Understood. Do you have a message for the intelligence community, though, in terms of unvarnished information getting to you, that it's not
I don't really have a message. I would say issue the report when you know what happened. I wouldn't say that it could be severe or maybe not. They use the word severe. It could be severe or maybe it's not.
And
so people like you picked up and said, oh, it's not severe.
We're just
no,
looking for
the report was not a complete report.
And of course, when Trump plants his flag on the issue, his underlings get the message loud and clear.
There's a reason the president calls out fake news for what it is. These pilots, these refuelers, these fighters, these air defenders, the skill and the courage it took to go into enemy territory flying 36 hours on behalf of the American people and the world to take out a nuclear program is beyond what anyone in this audience can fathom. And then the instinct of CNN, the instinct of the New York Times, is to try to find a way to spin it for their own political reasons, to try to hurt President Trump or our country. They don't care what the troops think. They don't care what the world thinks. They want to spin it to try to make him look bad based on a leak. Of course, we've all seen plenty of leakers. And what do leakers do? They have agendas. And what do? Do they share the whole information or just the part that they want to introduce? And when they introduce that preliminary report that's deemed to be a low assessment, you know what a low assessment means? Low confidence in the data in that report. And why is there low confidence? Because all of the evidence of what was just bombed by 12 30,000-pound bombs is buried under a mountain, devastated and obliterated. So if you want to make an assessment of what happened at Fordo, you better get a big shovel and go really deep, because Iran's nuclear program is obliterated. And somebody somewhere is trying to leak something to say, oh, with low confidence, we think maybe it's moderate. Those that drop the bombs precisely in the right place know exactly what happened when that exploded. And you know who else knows? Iran. That's why they came to the table right away, because their nuclear capabilities have been set back beyond what they thought were possible because of the courage of a commander-in-chief who led our troops, despite what the fake news wants to say.
Yeah, see? All you have to do is use big, strong words with a lot of exclamation points, and this way people will believe you. In fact, Pete Hegseth isn't the only mouthpiece who believes that the way to persuade people is by heaping egregious praise onto dear leader.
주체 105 2016년 1월 6일 10시 주체 조선의 첫 수소탄 시험이
You know what? Other than the color shirt, virtually indistinguishable at this point. So my advice here is simple. Perhaps don't believe the guy who lies every time he opens his mouth and who has every incentive in the world to perpetuate this lie in particular, given the fact that he himself would be responsible for the attack not being successful. It's a sad thing when we can't have an ounce of trust in our own government, but unfortunately, that's the reality of the Trump administration on a daily basis. Before you go, if you enjoyed this content and you want to see more and support independent media, please subscribe to this channel. The subscribe button will be right here on the screen. But second, the reality is that we are now in a political environment where this administration can lean on any of the social media platforms to suppress certain voices if they
I can't seem to face up to the facts. I'm tense and nervous and I can't relax. I can't sleep 'cause my bed's on fire. Don't touch me, I'm a real live wire. Psycho killer, qu'est-ce que c'est? Fa 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 fa. Better run, 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 run away. Oh, like a